Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your coffee and let's talk some astrology and think of whatever else comes up today we'll talk about. I think there's a lot actually going on today, and Roseanne out there says that she'd love a high vibe, joyous day, please. Don't we all? I do, and I don't see why we can't have one. There's just a couple of little things going on today that might make it a little more difficult, but knowing that ahead of time, you can avoid the problems. So welcome, everybody. It's good to see you all out there. Yesterday, we were on Zoom, and again, I felt that sort of feeling of being disconnected with you all, and I apologize for that. But in order to do readings, it's the best way to do it. So, and I hope you all got to see as we did a solar return for Katie and also worked on some of her transit energies. So here we are today with the moon in Leo. And as a friend of mine pointed out yesterday, good morning, Michelle, and I was just going to talk about you. So how funny that you show up right now. So a friend pointed out yesterday that I was wearing very Leo colors. Bright orange. Actually, it was kind of a peachy orange. So then this morning, I did not deliberately dress like that yesterday. I didn't even have that inkling. But this morning, I deliberately dressed in Leo colors, red orange or red, and offset with a little bit of other colors spiced in there. Good morning, Michelle. Great to see you. Good morning, Susie. Good to see you. And she says she's here today, not at work. I love it. Taking a day off and joining us here in the Meta Cafe. I love that. So the reason I'm still wearing Leo colors is because the moon is still in Leo for a good part of the day. And so we still are connecting with that energy of creative expression, creativity, and joy, as Roseanne wanted in her day today. And with the full moon bearing down on us, it's very important that you pay attention today to what those creative energies are that are coming up for you. So let's talk for a moment about some of the transits or aspects that the moon is making today, because she's actually firing off almost every planet that we carry in here. You know, if I look, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is where, right here, this grid tells us how all the planets are getting along or aren't they getting along, right? With the symbols that tell us how they're getting along. Look at the moon's column here, right? Down the line, she's got something going on almost everywhere. And not unusual, I suppose, when you have planets tightly packed together, that a moon that moves quickly is going to hit a lot of different things. But it means that this is a day where we may face many different types of energies, right? That you're going through the day. The beginning of the day here, we have the moon in a very positive trine aspect. That's a 120-degree angle. So if you draw out a trine, it makes a nice equilateral triangle. If you go back to your days in geometry, that's a very stable triangle or a very stable shape. And you kind of see it here in the picture of the transit for the day, right? That big blue triangle whoops this way and up. And that tells us that the energy is flowing and that the energy is kind of in a good place with the other planets. And so the moon is both trining Mars and Uranus. Good thing, right? Because when the moon is not trining those two and doing something else, it can be a little bit difficult. But today is a day to show your brilliance, right? To expose the world to your genius, whatever that might be, and in whatever way that might be. And to do it with joy and with pleasure, that you're able to share your gifts and talents with people in a way that makes them happy. You know, it's a choice. Happiness is a choice, right? You can have a bad day, and yet you can still choose to be happy. And you know, with very few exceptions, a bad day is really all up here in your head. And other people may look like they're facilitating this bad mood for you, right? They may look like they're doing things that are pissing you off, but it's really not them, right? It's about you and how you're going to react to it. So you're making it a good day. And so today indeed is a pretty good day. Later, we have the moon in a square to Jupiter. Now not that that one's bad. You know, remember squares, 90-degree angles, right? 90-degree angles are a little bit harsh. The energy is a little bit challenging. But it causes us to grow, and it causes us to move forward in some way. The moon, when it squares Jupiter, is often a time where we overdo it, right? Where we over imbibe, where if running a mile a day is good, we suddenly decide to run 5, and then later we pay the price, right? And sore muscles and a stomach that can't handle the fact you drank a gallon of tequila and not just a margarita. So don't go overboard today with anything, right? Luckily, this is a work day, so we're all probably at work or, busy doing things with our kids and schools and things like that. But still, the energy, for kids aren't going to quite understand, and they're going to be over the top. That's just one of the things, right? They're going to want recess. They're going to want play. And if I were a teacher today, I would let them play, right? I would let them play because they're burning off some energy for all of us. But the important thing here is to not overdo it, right? If you are even making a purchase today of some kind, you don't need the $5,000 model versus the $1,000 model, right? That's just not necessary. So, keep things in perspective, keep things proportional, right? That also means that a faux pas by a fellow coworker or something that somebody says or does not need to be followed up by you with an overreaction to what's going on. So everything proportional today, right? That I think we can do that, right? I think we can do that. Some of the other aspects going on today. Mercury is squaring Mars, and that brings on a bit of mental magic. I just got done telling my kids I don't talk backwards anymore. I should never say that, because then Mercury gets ready to go retrograde, and in those couple of weeks leading up to the retrograde, my mouth can't keep up with my brain. So back to Mercury squaring Mars. Again, square, 90-degree angle, challenging aspect. Mental agitation is really what we're looking at today. Mental agitation because Mars demands action and it's impatient, right? Have you ever been around Aries people, right? They are ruled by Mars. They have very little patience. Scorpio people ruled by Mars in some ways, also not very patient people. They want now, right? They see now, why can't I have it now? You mean you haven't given it to me yet? So impatience is also a part of our day. And I think really with the moon making as many different aspects as it is today, that patience is called for, right? There's going to be the changing face of many different things going on today. So don't let impatience or hasty words or hurting words create disagreements for you with the people in your world. It's just not needed, right? It isn't needed. Instead, use this energy that is stirring up your mental processes to see potentials, right? To dig into imagination, to use the sun's energy as it sits in Pisces to fuel that creative fire and let your imagination, move into maybe some very creative solutions to problems that you're experiencing or things that you want to do in your life. All right. The moon is void of course. Remember, I told you I was going to start letting you know when the moon moves void of course. Luckily, it doesn't move void until 6:13 p.m. East Coast time, and it's void until 57 minutes into the next day. So midnight, what would that be? 12:57 a.m. So most of us are home by then and not necessarily having to do anything real important perhaps, but if you are doing something important between those hours today, and by the way, that makes it 3:13 p.m. West Coast time to 9:57 p.m. for us this evening, you are going to be at work. So if you're going to try something new, or if you have a major conversation that you need to have with someone, do it before 3 o'clock. And on the East Coast, do it before 6 o'clock. And that way you have the energy of the moon on your side and not in limbo as she is when she goes void of course. So let's see, what else? I think I want to talk to you guys a bit about this full moon. Even though the full moon is tomorrow, I think we should talk about it today. Good morning, Londa. Good morning, Katie. It's good to see you all out there. And Londa, does that mean you're in yoga now, or you're going to be in yoga all day so that you don't have to worry about the moon? Maybe yoga is a good way to avoid. Oh, I bet you're saying that you're going to be in yoga during the time the moon is void, of course. And guess what? Remember our list of things to do when the moon is void, of course? Where's my little list? Because I'm pretty sure on that list I put some examples of things to do when the moon is void, of course. Prayer and meditation, sleep and dreaming, non-material matters, yoga and anything to do with internal processes, end a relationship or get divorced. Please don't do that today. And other things like, if there's a court matter, let someone else start the court proceedings. But the moon, when she's void, of course, yoga, meditation, mantra, prayer, all that kind of stuff is absolutely something to do during the void, of course, moon. Please don't start something new during the void, of course, moon, because it's really, unless you absolutely have to, right? If you can't avoid it, just know you're probably going to have to redo some things. So the full moon occurs tomorrow afternoon at 4:52 p.m. my time, 7:52 p.m. for you all on the East Coast. And this is the full moon across Virgo and Pisces. Now, I want to take you back in time. So get in your time machine and let's go back a year when I would have been talking to you this time on my radio shows about what were we learning during the Pisces Virgo transits that were the eclipse patterns, right? The eclipse patterns were taking us through those two signs, and we were really faced with the energy of victimhood and martyrdom and savior complexes and all of those types of things that we do that take us off our path. But we were also looking at and working with the parts of ourselves that we had sort of compartmentalized, that we had, we had a breakup, let's say, at some point, and we didn't want to deal with that. So, or we are hurt by it. So we kind of take that part of ourselves and we lock it away. And the Pisces Virgo energy gave us ample opportunity to reconnect all those parts of ourselves back into our core being. Because even if an experience isn't so positive or great, or one that you don't want to repeat, it still is a valid part of who you are and your experience as a soul here on the planet. And it is not necessary to compartmentalize it or break it away. You want to be able to love it all and bring it in and accept it for what it was, the lesson it showed you, the energy of the new direction perhaps that it brought to you. We don't want to break those parts off and leave them out there, because then we're not a whole being when we go to move forward into our next event or our next relationships, our next job, whatever it is. So this full moon then across Virgo and Pisces at the 11th degree, right? It's between 11 and 12 degrees. So 11 degrees, 23 minutes. I think that it's less than 30, so I'm going to call it 11 degrees. I noticed a couple of other astrologers calling it 12 degrees, but I like the magic of the 11, so I'm going to call it 11. And 11, of course, is the number of enlightenment. It's a number of illumination, shining the light on something, like having a flashlight. I wish I had a flashlight that I could show you, right? We're going to shine the light down on something. And of course, the full moon is the moon in its brightest state, and it is illuminating things for us. Remember, the full moon either brings things into completion, or it in some way is revelatory, where it shining its light is able to reveal something to us that we haven't seen before, or an aha moment happens, an epiphany. So the full moon is very powerful in this. And hopefully what it does for us is illuminate some more of those pieces that we have kind of shoved off to the sides, or, hope that we don't ever have to look at again. But I want you to look at them. I want you to bring them in. I want you to love them. I want you to love them because it's a valid part of your experience on the planet. It doesn't mean you have to re-experience it. It doesn't mean you need to go back down to the victim hole, because we're getting out of the victim hole. Remember, we're evolving away from the victim, savior, and martyr energy, and we're claiming our good. We're claiming our power. We're claiming our light. We are lightening up our DNA, right? We're allowing more light to shine in our DNA through those gene keys, through the human design gates, through the transits that are happening on the planet, in order for us to be our whole selves. And that's what this full moon is bringing us to. In the process, it's not always very comfortable. Remember, we still have Chiron in Pisces until April, so we're still dealing with the last of those issues of our victimness and our feeling disconnected perhaps from source or our higher self. So it's really an important moon for us, a lunation period for us to really go back and connect the parts of ourselves that we've left behind. Now, I want to show you the chart for the full moon, because, and I drew it in to make it look a little bit more obvious what's going on here. Remember, we've talked about for the last several weeks, God, it's maybe been months, where the North Node up here has been holding the weight of the bucket down here. So here's the bucket, right, where we could call it a boat. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's a vessel, right? It's the vessel. It is holding all of the energies of all of the other planets in the system. And up here we have now the moon in the full moon and the North Node, which is destiny, holding the handle of the bucket. I mean, to me, that's like so graphic, right? It really shows us that there's this pattern that's going on. And what's holding the weight of the other planets is our expression of our destinies, right? Your North Node shows your life path trajectory. Where am I headed? How am I taking all the gifts and the talents and the things and experiences that I've been through as a human being in this lifetime and others? And how am I taking that and utilizing it to move in this new direction called the North Node, called my destiny? And that is what we're seeing very clearly here, right? These planets are just in holding patterns, waiting for you to claim your destiny. And then they begin to fire off all of that energy and move it for you in the right directions. It's almost like, taking the bucket and what do you want to do with these planets? Well, maybe I want to water my garden with this energy or this water. Let's say if it was a bucket of water, I want to water my garden. So that's what your destiny is doing, right? Watering the garden of all of the other planets, helping you to sprout them, their pure potential at this time for you. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And I think maybe some ahas or epiphany energy comes up with this full moon in Pisces and Virgo to allow you to see what direction to head in, what comes next. And now, the moon itself is in Virgo, right? While the sun is in Pisces. So the sun is in that, hazy, crazy state, the imaginative state. But the moon is over here in the grounded earth energy of Virgo. So the moon is really calling you into the right timing to take action, right? It's not enough now to just have all this creative pressure up here. The moon is really showing you the path forward. I always think of Virgo and its relationship with the 6th house as where the rubber meets the road, where I take all that Leo creative energy in the 5th house and now I have to express it. Otherwise, it just stays up there in the imagination. Now, that doesn't mean that every idea you have or every creative impulse is meant to be expressed. That's where using your type and your strategy in human design becomes oh so important, right? Manifesting generators are the type that want to act on everything that's showing up, right? Because they can, right? They have a lot of energy. They're jugglers and they are step skippers, right? They can hop over one thing and, like playing what's that game? Checkers, where, you crown somebody and you can just keep moving around the board. Well, that's what manifesting generators do. But even they have to wait to respond to what is showing up in their outer world. And then they have to use their authority, whatever that may be, in order to make the correct decisions about what to take action on. So I'm not saying that everything that's revealed to you to take action on. Go inward to your type and your strategy. If you are a generator or a manifesting generator, you are responding to what shows up in your outer world, not from what comes up in here, right? That idea and inspiration that doesn't have a matching picture in the outer world is not meant for you to act upon yet. If you're a projector or, if you're a projector, you're here with the energy of waiting for the invitation. That means all these ideas up here are not meant to be acted upon until you have an invitation from someone, and that can happen in many different ways because you have limited energy, and sharing your brilliance is going to take a lot out of you. So you want to make sure that the people you're sharing your brilliance with, if you're a projector, are the right people, or you've wasted your time, your energy, your breath, and they are not hearing your message. If you are a manifester, you're an initiator, you really do not need to wait for anything in your outer world to happen before you can take action. All that's necessary for you is that you have the energy to follow this path, and you're using your authority. For example, if you're a manifester with the energy of initiation, but you have emotional definition, then that means you still have to wait for clarity, right? You got to get through your emotional wave and make sure that you're acting from the correct emotion. Does this feel good? Is this correct for me? And if you're one of the rarest types, the reflector, you're not making decisions in any quick way whatsoever, because there's a 28-day lag time for you, because you have to wait for the full cycle of the moon in order to get clarity about what's correct for you. So the full moon may be firing off some energy for you, but it's not yet time for you to take action. And the only way you're going to know that, if you're a reflector, is to really follow a human design path, looking at where's the moon in my chart and how is it firing my energy. And you're a people person. You need to be around other people so they can reflect back to you what your truth is. So different ways of being, different ways of making decisions. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that it's time for you to just go out and act on everything, because that is so not true. All right. Well, I think that's all I have for you today. Today's the last day of February. So you do realize that we didn't have a full moon in February, given that we had 2 full moons in January. And so our first full moon since January is tomorrow, March 1st. So tomorrow we'll talk about the energies for March and what's coming up that way. And I wanted to leave you with this thought. For the last couple of months, we have not had one planet retrograde. All of the planets have been in forward motion and really moving us forward. That changes in March, right? That changes in March. Coming up the 8th of March, the planet Jupiter turns retrograde. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow and how does that affect us all. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And be happy, be joyful, create the day that you really want to have. Love to all of you. See you tomorrow morning. Bye.